one of the prep school girls. I think you're in year 6, Jasmine, is that right? Year 6. And Nicole, what's the most interesting thing that's been found?
Oh, well, it depends which scientist you ask, really. All of the different scientists find their own field particularly interesting. I know that the chemical scientist, for example, found, I think it sounds quite boring, the work that he does, and I told him that I thought it sounded a little bit boring. He's a French guy, and he told me off and said, let me tell you something interesting that I've found. By this island of Altabra, where they think that there's no water, essentially, there's seawater surrounding it, but nobody's aware of any water, that's why people don't live here. But by blowing his probe into the water, he discovered that in the top 100 meters, say, of the water, the level of salt was very low indeed. And so he thinks that proves, or suggests, that there is actually water buried way down under the island that's leaking out and making the water less salty at the top. So that's something that obviously has enormous significance for our understanding of the island. You might not think it was very interesting if you're not a chemist, but that was interesting for him, certainly. They brought up some amazing corals. They had a type of coral which looked like it was fluffy. It looked a bit like a squishy, but with fur on it, if you know what I mean. And I reached out to try and touch it, and they said, don't touch it, because if you do, it will put lots of little glassy spikes in your fingers that you can have a terrible time to get out. And that's how it protects itself. So that was quite an interesting thing to see. And then in terms of animals, which are obviously the most obviously interesting thing, things like sharks and rays, we don't actually collect those, we don't bring them back on the ship, we just take photographs of them. So that's what submarines do. They go down and they have 2 video cameras running all the time, and then the scientists can analyse that data. So instead of having to take anything away like they used to before cameras, they can now just see what was there. Mrs. West just shot across there.
Yeah. She's telling me to keep your answers shorter.
Keep answers. Okay, fine.
No!